Jonathan Taylor was one of those running backs coming out of college that obviously had talent. He clearly had speed as he ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, he clearly had power based on the number of broken tackles he created on the ground, and he clearly had vision where he constantly broke big runs while dominating in college. While looking back at his college tape, there's really only seemed to be two major question marks when it came to him in the NFL. The first was his long-term durability. During his time at Wisconsin, he ran the ball over 900 times. On those carries, he gained over 6,000 yards. Again, it wasn't the level of domination or even the fact that he didn't really get injured very much. It was simply the wear and tear that he suffered with all those hits he took in school. The second question people had was his ability in the passing game. Scouts were a bit nervous for his potential as a pass catcher to the backfield and also his blocking ability whenever he was asked to stay inside. While we'll discuss both of those things later in this video, as a pure runner, there are very few running backs that are as good as Taylor. There's the Derrick Henrys of the world and the Nick Chubbs, and in my opinion, Jonathan Taylor needs to be discussed among those guys. Before we do that though, if you can do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to this channel, I'd greatly appreciate that. To start this video, let's look at some advanced stats. These metrics do a great job of showing just how well Taylor is playing. The first metric we'll look at is how well a ball carrier can slip a tackle. Missed tackle rate, or the number of broken tackles created per rush or per reception, is a great metric showing how elusive the running back is. So far in the 2021 season, the average running back creates a broken tackle on 17% of his attempts. Jonathan Taylor is above this average. He created a broken tackle on 20.6% of his touches. I really like this metric a lot because it shows how often any running back can create on his own. Running backs like Najee Harris of the Steelers or Javonte Williams of the Broncos and Michael Carter of the Jets are all doing well in this metric. This is in contrast to other players like Ezekiel Elliott of the Cowboys or Joe Mixon of the Bengals. They are below average here. Now, while missed tackle rate is a good metric, it certainly isn't perfect. Imagine a running back that is more of a speed back that doesn't create as many broken tackles, but still uses his speed to churn an extra yard or two per carry. Theoretically, he would create more yards than your average running back simply by being able to take advantage of the hole more quickly. This ability obviously wouldn't appear in the stat. However, it would appear in another metric, rush yards over expected. This chart, which was created by Seth Walder using NFL Next Gen Stats, shows how often and at what rate a running back creates yards over expected. These numbers are derived from a very advanced statistical model where they graphically break down each running back based on the vectors of the respective defenders. This is an excellent metric that combines a lot of what I've previously talked about. So no matter which way a running back creates yards on his own, rush yards over expected should account for that in the model. As you can see, Jonathan Taylor is right at the top. He's incredible at using power and speed to create as many yards as possible. So far in the season, he's created 1.6 yards per carry over expected for his team. The final stat, which we'll quickly discuss, is by looking at rush yards over expected as compared to team blocking rate. This chart, which was created by Ben Baldwin, does a great job showing how well a running back creates yards per carry as compared to how good his offensive line is. The Colts have one of the better run blocking units in the NFL, and while that's the case, Taylor is still playing above and beyond what's blocked. So with all that being said, let's turn to his film and look at a few examples of what Taylor does well. The first is his long touchdown run that happened at the end of the Patriots game in Week 15. The Colts were up 20-17. The Patriots had just scored, and so if they could stop the Colts on this set of downs, they had a chance at a final game-winning or game-tying drive. Instead, on 2nd and 8, Taylor ripped off his 67-yard touchdown. Let's look at what happened. Before the snap, the Colts were lining up at single back. They had 3 tight ends on the line of scrimmage and were running inside zone to the weak side. Meanwhile, the Patriots were lining up in a bare front, attempting to take away the combination blocks of the Colts offense. If you look at the left side, Wentz sees a 4-on-4 as you count blockers and their respective defenders to the left and center. The Patriots are using a run stun here. Kyle Vanoy is hitting the backside A-gap, while Dante Hightower is hitting the frontside C-gap. After the snap, Taylor aims for the left leg of the left guard. He's reading the defensive line inside to outside. Since Eric Fisher and Quentin Nelson collapse the 3-tech defensive tackle inwards, while 83 kicks out the end man of the line of scrimmage, this gives Taylor a clear read. As he takes the handoff, he sees Dante Hightower correctly sprinting towards the open C-gap. Meanwhile, the deep safety comes down to help in run support. What's impressive here is that since Taylor saw Hightower moving quickly to fill in the open hole, he correctly guessed that he would be overextended. He used this to his advantage. He put his feet in the ground, slipped the now arm tackle of Hightower, and since the safety was already down in the box, Taylor was gone. He used his elite burst to finish the run, and he sealed the win for the Colts. That last play shows speed and vision. It also shows the excellent blocking from the offensive line. You hope that the left tackle can peel off his block to get to Hightower, but it really didn't matter. Taylor took the ball to the house anyways. Plays like this happen all the time for Jonathan Taylor. He actually leads the entire NFL in breakaway percentage for running backs with more than 100 carries. He has 18 rushes that have gone for over 15 yards. Let's look at another play that showcases his skill. This one happened in the fourth quarter of his game against the Bucs. The Colts are lining up in single back in a tight alignment to the close side of the formation. They run pin pull mid-zone to the weak side. Pin pull blocking is a great change up to your classic zone run. Instead of the front side attempting to steal the defender's backside, this play features the front side guard pinning the nose tackle while the center pulls around him to lead block for Taylor through the hole. If done correctly, the defense's nose tackle can't make a play and the linebackers will be slow to hit the proper gap. Going up against a nose tackle like Vita Vea, this type of play is great to have in your arsenal. Let's see what happens. After the snap, Quentin Nelson pinned Vita Vea backside. Then the center, Ryan Kelly, pulled to block the frontside linebacker. Meanwhile, the backside linebacker, Levante David, he read this play correctly. He replaced Vita Vea's gap and he ran to the proper hole. While this initially presented a problem, watch Jonathan Taylor make his cut. He reads this play from the frontside B gap all the way to the backside C gap. That's a 5-gap read. He puts his foot in the ground, reads each defender respectively like he's supposed to, then he cuts quickly into the open hole. He then runs forward with power and gains 15 yards on the play. While this run may seem simple in that Taylor read the offensive line correctly and hit the proper gap, the main takeaway I had was how quickly he read the defense to make his cut. He also was able to burst through the hole with speed and with excellent footwork. He never lost his burst as he hit the second level. Then he lowered his shoulder and attempted to fight for an extra yard. This is an excellent run and it showcases a lot of what makes Jonathan Taylor so good. Outside of plays like this, the thing that I noticed the most was how Taylor consistently made the right decision. Reading the block, making the cut, and creating yards on his own was something that was all over his film. He also does a great job of lowering his body to take contact, and he can push the pile with excellent balance. The other thing I saw was that he has an excellent sidestep juke where he completely stops his feet in the middle of a run and he can reshift his body to completely angle it another direction. The moment you think you have him stopped in open space, he just runs the other way and it makes you wonder how he did that in the first place. Like on a run that should have only gone for 5 or 6 yards, it ends up going for 10 or 11 and you just sit there confused on what exactly happened. Now from a scheme perspective, the Colts are as a between the tackle running team as possible when it comes to their runs with Taylor. It was inside zone, then duo, then inside zone, then duo again. For example, his game against the Patriots was something like 90% of the runs that fit into that bucket. Obviously, there's other runs in their system that Taylor takes advantage of, like mid-zone weak, or some of their stretch runs out of shotgun, but those 2 first runs seem to make up the base of their offense. On top of that, when you add in some boundary runs like a jet sweep with wide receiver, this is how the Colts can stretch a defense. If you think about it, this makes a lot of sense given their offensive line. Having guys like Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Mark Lewinsky making up their interior 3, I would probably do the same if I was coaching this team. Those guys work extremely well together. They communicate with each other to pass off their blocks, and it's incredible to watch how well they work to the second level. Quentin Nelson, who I mentioned before, is a 3-time All-Pro guard, and he's so fluid at this. From a technical standpoint, it makes me very happy. There's rarely a free rusher hitting the backside on his side of the offensive line. If this team needs 2 or 3 yards to pick up a first down, they usually just run it up the gut and use those 3 offensive linemen to give Taylor a clear path. Then he'll use his speed and power and that sidestep juke move to angle in another direction and he'll take the first down. While this scheme is far from sexy, it's definitely effective with Taylor's skill set. I know analytics people hate the body blow argument, but if you're consistently chunking 4+ yards per carry with such an elite offensive line, I imagine it's pretty demoralizing for a defense. Regardless, it's clear Taylor is excellent on the ground. I do, however, think he needs to improve in the passing game. He needs to improve as both a pass catcher and as a blocker. The Colts have mainly used Taylor on flat routes and screens. Whenever they need the running back to split outside or be involved in the passing game, Nyheim Hines comes in and he runs those routes. For example, Hines was split all over the field and he's used in a variety of ways in the passing game. Taylor, on the other hand, has been pretty much relegated to just out of the backfield functions. As a pass blocker, the story is pretty much the same. He's been used as a pass blocker on just 55 of his snaps so far in the season. On those snaps, he's allowed a pressure on over 14% of those plays. This is above average as you look across the NFL. According to Pro Football Focus, the average running back allows a pressure right around 9%. Further, out of the 51 running backs with 25 or more pass blocking attempts, Taylor is bottom 10 in pressures allowed. Needless to say, this is something he needs to work on. The good news is that while Taylor isn't really a factor in the passing game, he's as elite as they come when you look at him as a runner. Running between the tackles while reading the flow of the defense is definitely a specialty. Then when he can put his foot in the ground and execute his one cut, he can do some serious damage against pretty much every defense. Even small holes, just like what we saw in his games against the Patriots and the Bucs, those definitely highlight his talent. In my opinion, I think there's a strong case for him to be this season's Offensive Player of the Year. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is up there too, but Taylor is certainly playing at the pinnacle of his position. In the future, I really hope he does become more utilized in the passing game. I would love to see him attack the middle of the defense just like Christian McCaffrey does. Even if this never happens, having a dynamic runner certainly helps his offense. Considering how well he creates yards on his own, the dude is extremely impressive, and I'm really excited for his future. Well, that's all I have for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great holiday break, and hopefully we'll see y'all once more before the holiday begins. Do me a favor and subscribe to this channel, and you can also follow me on Twitter at SamuelRGold.